new art on our wall. The yellow figure in profile right above our head. It was written backwards as him or mih, M-I-H. The one we just did today was backwards for he. Honestly, one looks like it could be in profile of the other. The other ones here in red above our head was she, and the blue one in front of us was her. We had wondered the other day if perhaps the shade was a princess in some way, because it's odd that she and her are of different color. It seems to resemble more our own portrait, the white and blue one to the right. Is the shade a girl? We don't know. But we know that the shade is not currently a princess, and that because we were created by the king. So we had speculated previously as well that perhaps our shade was alive before now, and that this is some sort of extra life or a life in the beyond. So perhaps we were a princess in another life. It's purely speculation. So today, for our adventure, this is something we had started weeks ago. It was something we did on, I believe, our third day of playing the game. We had gone off and explored, and we found a place that would grow moss, but didn't have a single bit of moss on it at the time. Actually, I think it'll be more fun to click it. Let's travel there. We had reached a pit, a huge pit, which ended in some sort of a cliff to a ledge that was impossible for us to reach. Shade, where are you going? I don't think he got lost. Perhaps one of my game controllers has a little bit of drift and is just naturally pushing to the right. So, a tiny little drop was leaking from the ceiling, and the shade figured in about a month that little drop would perhaps fill that pit. In the number of days, it's been well beyond a month. We were just busy, occupied with reading. Yeah, I definitely have a little bit of drift. You know what? I know that's the faster way. Let's go this way instead, just because it's more scenic. We haven't seen this way in a while. Yesterday, we let our shade read a book while we were away, and he finished it very quickly. The book had less than 30 pages. We gained maybe a half hour's worth of time from reading it. We also planted our first mushroom. Well, we only have one mushroom. We could only plant the one. We could have chose to eat it instead, which would have meant that tomorrow we would just have one mushroom. But instead, tomorrow we'll have 2 mushrooms, and then 4, so forth, so on, till we can fill up the little garden in our home. So this door, if you recall, gave us a disappointment. Let's revisit it since we're here. This door should lead to the library, but it is blocked from the other side. I will add this event to my list of disappointments. I can imagine. Being as we are, where we have very few books left, and knowing there is a library that just can't be entered. So, one thing to consider is the layout. We just saw that door, and now we're going several flights upstairs. At the top of these stairs, it's just a cave. Within our cave is a door. Well, it acts as a door, but it's just a cave leading to another cave. Or a passage. I like the rocks here. They look like they were formed from something just melting. Yes, it's worth pointing out that this is a 2D representation. It's hard to understand things in a 3D sort of space. I often think of our home as well, how we were running out of wall space to put images, to put our pictures. In a 3D space, we would have had the opposite side. We would have had a whole bunch of other walls there that we can't use. But being the player, why would you put pictures on a wall that you couldn't see? You may as well be hanging your pictures upside down. Or not upside down, but reversed. So, in 3D space, how this room relates to the other, we're not sure. Look at that huge pool of water. I'm surprised our shade friend, if you recall, when we first entered the caves, he commented that that puddle of water, it was a shame it was too shallow for him to drown himself in. This one's a good bit deeper, but he no longer wishes to drown himself, thankfully. Thank you, little droplet. That jump, it's so satisfying and also gives me a little bit of dread because in the animation, it almost looks like he fails the jump. It would be the jewel of his collection, that bit of moss. I can imagine why. So it's a very similarly colored door to the one we saw before, but there's no way we could have reached the other side. We've only walked down a short flight of stairs. And we had just come up a very long way. We can be thankful that the door didn't take hours to open. A book. One day these pages will crumble to dust. I hope to get the chance to read them first. Another book. I will be the first and only one to ever lay my eyes upon these pages. Is that true? Could that be true? What about the person who wrote it? A book. This one has quite a promising title. Hopefully it will live up to it. This book has aged a lot during its stay down here. So have I. lump of coal. A fallen brother returning home. 99 coal. It's quite exciting. This book has dust all over it, like a good story with layers. Looks like I picked up 2 there. And I'm gonna walk past these books because... What's this? What a shame to see a fine book like this on the floor. I will end this blasphemy. Enter the door. The door is blocked, but it would merely lead back to the palace. So we came down a short flight of stairs, and if you look at the entrance, came down another short flight of stairs. So apparently this is the other side of that door. But we're happy to finally be in the library. A new book. I bet this one will be a thrilling read. New book for my collection. It's not exactly in mint condition, but it should make a pleasant read at home. I can imagine the Shade just wanting to run home now that he has all these books. And I think in some ways, even for the player, because all you can read at this point are not really the book titles, but you just know you have more books. You don't really get to explore them until you get home. Three whole floors filled with books. Does this book contain the clue I need? I didn't know you were looking for a clue. But in some ways I can relate to that statement, where sometimes you're interested in a book or a video game just because you want to learn what it's about, what it has to say. Cover is torn, but the pages are all right. Good job, cover. You've done your job. I hope the king doesn't mind if I borrow one of his books. This book will keep me company at home. Welcome, friend. Do you belong here, book? Better take you to a safe place. You notice the ceiling right there, above our little shade. It seems to be damaged in some way. It looks like perhaps there's actually something up there. Well, nothing we can do about it now, but let's remember this place. I've talked before about the idea of living in the palace as if it was his home, rather than his little hole in the wall. Why not hang out here and read books? Well, he doesn't have his throne for one. It's not where he feels comfortable. But when you're reading a book, do those things really matter? For me, I feel bad now that we've pillaged all the treasures out of that nice little location. Most people will never see it again. Most shades? Couldn't call them people, could we? That's fun. And you would think after a great number of days that perhaps the water level would rise even beyond this. It actually doesn't. I don't know why, it just doesn't. Perhaps that's all it can hold, and it seeps out to somewhere else. But with our new collection of books, we can easily leave our little shade something to read while we're away. There it is. There it is. 100. Now at last that we have 100, we could go talk to the face. I'll save that trip for another time. Since we're on this side of the palace, I think we'll go visit the Hall of Eternity, gather more paper, and just continue with the idea of improving our home and trying to pass time. We have a good number of bare walls in our home. Might as well cover them in art. Escape from me, little friend. Ha. With the additional coal, we can build a fire. So, who would block off the passage to the library? Did they intentionally? There were a couple of boulders there, and they looked to be stacked together. In some ways, we were fortunate for a little water drop. And that pit, was that perhaps dug intentionally to prevent someone from reaching the library? The Shade did say, when he picked up one book, that perhaps this is the clue he was looking for. I don't think there's actually that level of depth of story. But we still have many hundreds of days to spend. Why not have fun with those thoughts? Just to humor ourselves with the thought that perhaps somebody dug a ditch intentionally to prevent somebody from crossing easily into the library, and that they had boarded up the door there. We could also consider that stalactite, the one we had to wait to fall, that someone had dug out perhaps the flooring there as well. And we have found tools here and there. As a counter argument, however, there are places where there are two sets of stairs. We can go left or right. And one of the sides has been damaged as well. So there are stairways that just perhaps eroded, or rocks had fallen and smashed the rocks out of place, and they're just simply damaged over time. Because even with the smashed side, there's still a perfectly good other side that we can walk on. Probably means there are other stalactites and things falling and moving around. So, our drawings. We've pretty much have filled the bedroom with a great deal of drawings. We've filled up the area above our fireplace, but now we have a mushroom room? A room of mushrooms? We have one of those. We have plenty of space to decorate that. How should we decorate it? Are you sure there's more things to be found? Yeah, I'm sure. think what I'll do is, with all the paper we're going to gather, I want to put all the pictures of victory and defeat. There are a couple of each. There's the ones with the stork and the egg there. In some ways, I feel like they tell a story. And I think just having all the images there, we can look at it and see if there is any meaning to that story. The spot looks very symmetrical. It wasn't perfect though. The very last row in the back. Do we keep walking through eternity, grabbing as much paper as we can, or do we go home early so that way we can see all the books that we have just gathered? Well, in one way, what's the rush? In the other way, well, we haven't really found much paper thus far. Since time doesn't move here, would you get tired walking through eternity? Or just bored, perhaps? My thought was, if you did get tired, sat down and had like a little nap or something, when you got up, how would you know which way to go? I'm sure in the 3D sense, the 3D perspective, each direction would pretty much look the same. Or maybe not. And I say that just because, looking in the background, the columns don't necessarily line up, not in a straight line. The only place perhaps they do line up in a straight line is straight ahead. I think I've made up my mind to turn around. However, we've walked this far. What if that next piece of paper is just a few more pixels ahead of us? I do think this place is quite nice in terms of playing a game that has a time limit. Because what if you go on vacation or can't play for a good bit of time and you know something is coming up? To be able to just walk here and leave your game here, then no time would pass. And you can come back to the game whenever you like and continue exactly from the moment you had left off. I think it's a nice feature. Let's see if anything has changed there. I don't think we've been gone long enough. In fact, we've been gone only a moment. My thought earlier about taking a nap somewhere and not knowing which way you would be going afterwards. Well, we do have quite a bit of coal on us. I would imagine it's quite easy to mark up all these white pillars, putting arrows on them and such, just to remember the direction, creating a trail. think the interesting thing would be after leaving eternity and then coming back again later, will our trail still be there? Consider that the items we pick up, the place is somewhat repopulated each time we return. What if it's not repopulated, but what if this place is just a single moment of time, and that each of those moments are different? So right now we're at 11:22:51. If we were to enter at 11:22:52, we're in a completely different eternity, because it's a completely different moment in time. Hello, Cruelty Squad. How are you? And welcome back. I didn't think I walked through here that long. And we got, what, 2 pieces of paper for it? I imagine within a week or so, we'll be back. Perhaps to find more paper. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure how I made the shade auto-walk, but he was auto-walking. Now he's stuttering. That's just the switch, I guess. Well, it's never done that before. Maybe we're lost. Oh, right. I understand why we're auto-walking now. I did that. Let's go. If we were to walk for 5 minutes in eternity and then make a bookmark of that spot, will the shade enter again and walk just 5 minutes and stop there in that spot? So if after 5 minutes he'll stop there, what if we left the shade walking through eternity for days, months, and then we made a bookmark there? I don't think there's a way to share save games, but here, have my save game. My shade has been walking through eternity for over a year. Actually, that's true. I do have a profile of a character. I called him Ever, and immediately upon starting the game, we came here to this location right away, and we started walking through eternity. I was looking through the pictures and videos I have of the game, and finally estimate how long ago it was. I do believe it was in February of 2021 that I set our shade Ever to begin walking through eternity. So that's something I want to jump to at one point in the stream, is to visit that profile. Having walked for years, well over 400 days, through eternity. Will we have reached the end? There's a subreddit of For the Longing. If you like the game, and if you're curious about what other people have to say about it, it's a fun little community. People sharing plushies and drawings, favorite moments, talking about spoilers and stuff. There's a couple of posts in particular where one of them is, we have a book of thoughts in our home, and usually there is something we can do and the shade will cross out that thought, including our list of items and things we've picked up. The shade even, for some reason, crosses that out, which seems an unusual thing to do. Why would you cross out that, of all things? I guess the list is complete. We've gathered pretty much everything that there is to gather. So on that list, however, there are two things that cannot be crossed out, as far as we know. And one of them is, once you begin that walk of eternity, the shade has a place in his thoughts, that he's heard of this place of eternity. And once you begin walking through it, your notes will change to reflect the sign that we see at the entrance, that only a fool attempts to reach the end of eternity. And then it's left like that. That's just the new statement, and it's not crossed out or anything, and that's just how it is. So people have wondered, is there a way to have it crossed out? I think there is a second one that is also never crossed out. take a look at our thoughts when we get back. My profile, Walking Through Eternity, I haven't touched it. I haven't touched it in well over a year. I did look at it one time, and the loading, when you first start the game, it says wait. The game is calculating, for example, if I were to tell the shade to go home, I can just leave the game, turn it off, and the shade will keep walking. And when you return to the game, it'll calculate time, it'll calculate how far the shade is perhaps gone, and it will put you in the position you should be in. So, having walked through eternity for months at that point, that screen that says wait, it took a while. It took a good while before it actually loaded up and did anything. I was just in eternity, I haven't really gone anywhere, and I was excited for a moment, seeing the long wait. I was thinking, perhaps I broke something. Perhaps I am at the end. Perhaps I'm somewhere new. The game's having to figure it out. But after a minute or so of waiting, the wait finished, and I was still in the halls of eternity. However, the halls, they loaded quite slowly. There's levels of pillars, and they're all moving at a different pace. It's called parallax. That's the name of the technique, where things in the foreground are moving at a different speed than those in the background, or the further and the furthest background. So when the game loaded, we got one layer of the parallax scrolling, and then the next, and then the next. It took time for the game to actually load in, and before we could actually see our shade walking. So I would imagine, since it's been more than a year since I've touched it, it might take even longer. It might. It gave me the sense that perhaps there wasn't an ending. Given that kind of display, it made me feel like I was really straining the game code to do that, and that it wasn't intended to do what I was doing with it. So I'm not really hopeful that there is an ending to the eternity. Just because the game felt like it was laggy, or something was going wrong with the process. But since I had started on that journey, I didn't want to stop. So I continued walking and turned the game off again. It's something I definitely want to show off and share on the stream, but perhaps as the last stream. Just something fun, something lighthearted after everything that we will experience. But if it is still walking, if the shade is still there, I'll make a bookmark. Look at that bookshelf. It's absolutely stuffed. Let's read a book. Let's read our thoughts. King told me to wait 400 days. Well, after 400 days, that will be crossed out. My birthday will be a bit sooner. His birthday will happen, I imagine, within a year's time. The king warned me that I should never leave these caves. I wonder what exactly he meant by that. I do believe that gets crossed out. We do learn what the king meant. Dreamed of a strange place beyond the kingdom, green grass and trees. An old blind man was operating a well that reached down into the cave. A spider emerged from the depths, carrying a young troll sitting nearby. Wonder if this place is real, or just a product of my imagination. I do believe we can cross that out once we discover if that place is real or not. I like to explore the caves, but I feel the presence of a great darkness. Where is this darkness? Will I ever overcome it? 3 different points. We can imagine that that has some meaning and something we could approach. The cave is supposedly full of hidden places. I haven't found them all. I've seen nearly every area of the cave. I do think that the shade comments there at the very end, I have seen every place, or something to that effect. I don't think it's just crossed out and nothing at the very end. So that would be the other one, but it's kind of obvious. What would you cross that out to say afterwards? Find a book that never ends. And there, I've learned that only a fool tries to reach the end of eternity. And this one's interesting because you can see the use of the page. It usually goes towards the bottom, right? But this one, there's space underneath it. And it just leaves that hint of doubt that perhaps that space is there for something else to be written. Maybe. Try to make use of my spare time. Time goes faster when you keep your mind occupied. My home is not comfortable enough for the long wait. So we still need to improve our home, and we've made great strides in that. Hacking through the walls, there are crystals of many colors. We still need one more crystal. And just today we started with the mushroom, the room of mushrooms. There's another passage that we've begun to carve out. The bed will be a nice addition. We just need a few pieces of wood. Oh. I think the library. We didn't see it. It didn't stand out to us because I believe it's crossed out now. Running water. Don't need to eat. There is a secret library somewhere in the kingdom. I could use more books, so I'd very much like to find it. I really need to read more. We've done it. But there's still left the dream to find a book that never ends. Alright. So, our new books. The Raven. Nice. It's another short one. The Iliad, volumes 9 through 17. And we have the 4th and last part of Zarathustra. Fables. 3 Tales. It's a short one. The Golden Bird. More of the Iliad. Morella. I don't know what that is. The Gaia. The Unparalleled Adventures of Hans Fall. The Time Machine. H.G. Wells. The Secret Garden. That's a long one. Monte Cristo. The first part. The Secret Garden. I think we'll let our shade read this one today. I think the thing that troubles me most about the idea that we can cross out that part of our book, the part of our thoughts about eternity, is the fact that if I had walked 400 days to finally reach the end of eternity, that would mean I would have to walk back.